Okay, thank you all. This is a great event, and we are glad to present today now the doing business in space, living orbit, our Italian space tech panel with wonderful people here. I'm Raffaele Mauro, partner at Primo Space, and we have here Veronica, Regina, CEO at NanoRacks Europe, Lorenzo Feruglio from ICO, CEO and co-founder of this amazing machine learning and artificial intelligence company, and Francesco and Stefano, CEO and co-founder at Caraco. We should say, I believe, after this coffee session that this is not doing business in space, but doing pizza in space or doing spaghetti in space. I will start to ask every single one of you to maybe get us know more what you do, and there are very interesting sectors where your companies are operating, and what you do specifically, and what are your perspectives for the future. So I will start with Veronica.
Okay, good afternoon everyone. Thanks for organizing this such an amazing group for a nice afternoon. And I am here to share with you the vision of NanoRacks. NanoRacks Europe belongs to the family of NanoRacks. That is a company that was established 10 years ago and more in the US. And the setup of the European company has been done 2 years ago. So basically, NanoRacks is a service provider to access space. We find out a way to bring everything up to the International Space Station at affordable condition, at no prohibitive condition, because our vision is a space for everyone. So we would like to be away from the paradigm that space is just a privilege of such people, and the other hand, people have the impression that space requires a lot of time, a lot of resource, a lot of money. Oh, no way. Go on our website and you can find the pricing list of the services to access space. You can have an digital access to the ISS. We have a program called the Dreamcoder 2.0. You can get an access at really 2,500 euros. And you have a subscription for 1 year to send up your coding experience up to the ISS and get the data back. So it's a digital access. Maybe you want to have a more tangible experience. And then we have something simple like the MixStick. It's just a simple tube with the 3 sections where you can investigate how fluid dynamics works in microgravity, because one of the leaning points of space in LEO is the absence of weights. So everything is weightless, so you can understand better some phenomenon that if you would like to understand on Earth, you have firstly create a lab, so you have to spend money to create this condition. Instead, in space, it's for free. You just arrive there, it's for free. And you have also another amazing factor for free. Amazing, like cosmic radiation, like exposure to ultraviolet rays, like exposure to vacuum, unpressed condition. Well, this is negative factor, but there are stress factors. So basically, you can test your technology, you can validate your scientific hypothesis, and then you can learn more how things work, and also to solve particularly terrestrial problems. So for instance, there are a number of experiences for searching countermeasure for aging, because one of the phenomena like osteoporosis, they are more accelerated in microgravity condition, and then you can test faster some new drugs, some countermeasure. So as you can see, our vision is that space is closer to Earth. We go to space because we would like to live better on Earth. So that's why we would like to create the condition to be a player, created the condition for making space closer to everyone, that everyone can bring what they want up to space. So I would like to share maybe the vision with the other.
So you're basically democratizing space and increasing the accessibility. That's great.
Yeah, correct.
So I would like also to hear from Francesco, and you are also building something very, very interesting.
Thank you very much, everyone, for the event and for inviting us. So while Veronica is trying to democratize space and access to space, we're trying to build stuff that can go to space at a cheaper and a more efficient way. So I am co-founder and CEO of a company that's called Caraco, and Caraco is a provider of additive manufacturing services. Specifically, we developed a proprietary robotic technology that allows us to print very large-scale applications, specifically with advanced requirements for high demanding industries such as the aerospace one. We are an innovative startup, and we just founded the company 3 years ago and now scaling up, and our aim and our objective is to leverage this new and disruptive technology in order to decrease the weight of the parts that we know is such a critical factor, as Veronica was saying, to go up to space, and at the same time finding new ways and new sustainable and efficient manufacturing techniques to reach the same requirements that today this industry has. We are involved, of course, in developing parts that today are made on Earth, then to be brought to space. Tanks for satellites, propulsion system components for different launchers and rockets, while tooling to assemble the whole launch pad. And these are just some of the parts, but like the idea and the development goes towards the direction of moving production from Earth to space or directly on the planets. So here we see that there's a huge trend on, while there are different providers that are trying to bring down the cost of going to space, it becomes more and more attractive to actually start producing in space, because bringing machine to produce 10 parts there becomes more and more efficient and cost effective. And also safer. So the idea is to leverage this automated technology in order then to bring it up and being able to produce there.
Fantastic. So thank you, Francesco. And after the hardware, we have the software component. So I will leave Lorenzo to describe what is it.
Yes. Hi, everybody. I'm the CEO and founder of ICO. And I'll try to describe ICO without using any buzzwords, but you'll see it's very difficult because we are an AI company working in automation for space, so really a lot of buzzwords. What we do actually is software, so we're a software company, and we deploy software on board the satellites. So we really do write software that flies in orbit. And what we're trying to solve as a problem is two things. One, space mission costs a lot to operate. So we have a lot of costs going on in the Mission Control Center, which is the big room where you see all the monitors in the movies. You probably have seen plenty of them. That is a very expensive process. We're trying to automate that process to bring down the operation costs. And the second problem we're trying to solve is really to try to make the satellites more capable. And in particular, we're trying to make the satellite more intelligent, I would say. So trying to let the satellite decide how to take data, how to acquire new data, generally speaking, how to manage the mission in the best way without relying on ground control, without relying on an operator on the ground pressing button or taking decisions. So this is what we do. We did a world first demonstration in 2019 of deep learning, one of the field of AI, in orbit on an Earth observation satellite, and that was really to solve a very simple problem, which is quite funny, which is cloud detection. So really making sure that the satellite doesn't send to Earth, so to ground, to the customers, images that are covered by clouds. As you can understand, when you look at Google Maps, you don't really see any cloudy images there. And you can understand that if you send this data down, that data cannot be monetized, because companies will never sell an image that's full of clouds. And this is a simple problem that can be solved with our technology flying on the satellite.
Okay, so just to provide context, Earth observation is one of the key technologies, key satellite technologies for Earth applications, like together with telecommunication and positioning. So many industries like transportation, logistics, agriculture, insurance, infrastructure monitoring, insecurity, they are all based on Earth observation, and also very relevant now the climate change analysis and protection. So my next question is about the space economy. So we saw during the last 10 years a significant growth of the space economy. We as a venture capital fund, we are seeing this very clearly in the volume of funding. Basically the VC funding for space startups doubled every year in the last 3 years. So it's skyrocketing now, and there is a huge wave of interest because of some of the things that you mentioned, like miniaturization, accessibility, and so on. So my question for each of you is, from your specific point of view and your specific angle, what are the main drivers of the space economy now? How do you see the future in this sector? I will start with Veronica.
Well, ambition question. What we can say from NanoRacks that really we receive more and more questions directly from the simple inquiry form of the website. I would like to send these up to space. And so I have a real clear evidence that everyone would like to access space, and they can do. So you can actually be self-sustainable as a business because it's a type of services that generate revenue. And more people, our customers, they are less dependent from public funding, because historically someone think about that funding are coming from a space agency, public institution, research center, and so on. No, the people come with their open pocket and they say, I have this pocket, this budget available, what you can do for me, and we tailoring the type of mission objective for making their dream reality. So I believe that the VC community had looked at this in a way that had the tangible, let's say, result that if they invest in this type of capability, in a way that they can increase the readiness to go up to space, then the generation of the revenue is much faster. So it's really, let's say, an economy that is increasing the return of the investment. And of course, this is the key factor sensitive to sensibilize a new investment, a new volume of VC. Saying that, I really believe that we are going to leave the paradigm where the big missions are coming from space agency. We are moving in an era where business people, they have a vision and they ask the enabling support of the space agency, like the enabling support of a telecommunication agency to allow you to have spectrum access, to be honest. So I think today when we buy a mobile, we don't go to the agency of telecommunication for something. There is a market, and we are going to move to this type of a marketplace, I would say. Then, on the other side, we are also learning incredible things, so things that we can do in space. Delivering new item, new technology, that they have a tangible return on Earth. So, for instance, one of the constraints and requirements to go up to space is miniaturization. And many times our customer, during their path to prepare what they would like to send up to space, they end up in new patent. And the patent is belong to a feature that they are going to commercialize on Earth, particularly for packaging, for instance, because you have to assure that the payload is not going to have leaking. And so in this way, they come up with a number of, let's say, valuable ideas to be exploited not only space, but also on Earth more intensely. So this is another opportunity where the return of the investment is growing, because you have both, let's say, application, space and Earth. We should not forget that now the world is looking intensely and with the intention to reach back the moon, with the intention to be there longer, to really fabricate something, to stay longer. So basically we have another step, another destination. And when you have another destination, you want to go and come back. So the generation of opportunity for logistics is growing. And we have seen now on the Earth that every time logistics is improving, you have a sort of shock in the economy, in my opinion. So if we add a new destination, we are going to have soon a globally positive shock, positive externality in the overall economy. So that's my vision. So thank you.
Thank you. And Francesco?
That's very interesting, and I would like to build on that, because I think what Veronica is saying is basically we will go more and more to space. More people will access space, more missions will be delivered, private missions will take over on purely public missions, and all these factors just mean one thing. We need to be faster in shortening the lead time of preparing a mission. And how can we do that? There are several ways, but manufacturing challenges are key. in order to reduce cost of rockets, reduce development time of the rockets and satellites, and that's where we're really trying to see which type of technologies can reduce cost on one side. So usually in space there's a correlation between weight and cost. So the lighter and the less costly is to launch something. So additive manufacturing there can play a role because it can really try to see how can we, for example, substitute some metals with some composites that have a lighter weight and that can actually still have the same type of performance. Or how can we optimize the geometry of a specific component that today is standard and made with traditional manufacturing techniques, and actually by optimizing it we still have that requirements but at the same time less cost. So these I think are main challenges we see it in our clients. Today many startups in the space industries are around launching, and most of them leverage additive manufacturing to actually shorten the lead time of development of their rockets. At the same time, satellite manufacturers, as Veronica was saying, are miniaturizing the whole thing. And how can they do that? How can they customize the size of their missions without increasing the cost of their satellites? And I think we're really seeing how an end user need is changing the whole value chain in the space industry. We are scaling an industry, we're creating a new economy, and by privatizing this industry at the same time, we need to find new and more efficient ways to produce. And I believe now additive manufacturing is not the only one, there are many. And for us, the main challenges are around how can we make sure that we can scale this? Because it's really not obvious to how a new technology on such a high demanding industry can really be able to serve such a huge growth that we are experiencing. So yeah, and the next big thing would be probably how can we disrupt additive manufacturing in the way we know it. Today we're really into the knowledge that additive manufacturing is it's kind of designing, pushing a button and printing. I mean, I'm simplifying, but like how can we really leverage the advantage of this technology by designing on Earth, engineering on Earth, preparing based on the specifics of our clients, and then pushing a button and producing space. So this is probably what we think will be the way to solve this time and development issue. But I think there's a lot of development to be made in very short time, and venture capital is crucial in order to foster this new industry that is now growing.
Thank you, Francesco. And Lorenzo?
Yeah, so it's quite difficult to add on additional information here, but it's to me what is really happening is that we're seeing two types of evolution of the ecosystem in general. You're familiar probably with the word new space, you probably have heard it already. What does it mean? Is that we're looking at a sort of revolution where you have the traditional space being really trying to do the same business they've been trying to do it for the last 20, 50 years. And then you have this new space, which is an ecosystem of new companies really being funded privately, which are pursuing, to me, a very clear objective, which is going commercial with a space business case. And this is used to be very rare, and now it's getting broader and it's getting more frequent, more common. So as the colleague said here, we're starting to see more and more businesses surviving and growing and thriving in this private space ecosystem. And ultimately, maybe we're only trying to make space more accessible to everybody. As you see, as a private citizen, you're not really involved with any space activity, even though you use a lot of space products, like the navigation system that you have on your cell phone. No? We've become dependent on that, but we don't really use space for anything else. And now there are many companies that are working in this domain, trying to provide services for the private and commercial market, let's say. So that is a revolution that is coming up. Yeah.
So thank you, Lorenzo. So it was mentioned that there is an increasing number of people going to space. Actually, 2021 was the year of records because just a few days ago with Inspiration 4 there was the record of number of people simultaneously in space, because adding up the people on the space station, on the International Space Station, the people on the Chinese space station, and the people from Inspiration 4, there was a significant number. Next year will be more potentially in terms of number of human launches to space. There was this year the record of robotic missions to Mars, robotic new missions for the moon. So it's the situation is evolving very quickly. I would like to give a different turn to our conversation and maybe add a personal touch. So, in your experience, what was your experience as CEOs, entrepreneurs, or managers of deep technology companies? This is not space is cool, but it's not easy. You have the barrier of launching costs. There are regulations, safety requirements, and also being an entrepreneur by default is very hard. So, what was your experience? And I'm curious if you can tell some challenge and maybe how did you overcome those challenges?
Yeah, I'm happy to say that during this afternoon I really felt at home with the previous speaker, particularly the one that reported about the asymmetric advantage and the lift view. I mean, the way that CEO, you need to measure a number of relationship and trustability with a number of stakeholders. So they can be all your friends, they can be all your enemy. Same story with the customer, that they are the one driving your survivability, first of all, and then you have to look for sustainability. Because, sign a contract is a path, and then there is another life, still the challenging is going on. So I would say challenging, and what personally I do love of this job is the fact that you learn from every single step. From a networking event, from a discussion with an employee that is your team member, from a discussion maybe with, let's say, second layer of stakeholder that is your private life, because time is a so democratic resource. Everyone has 24 hours, but that's it. No more, no less. So you have to share around. So in this respect, I would say that we should not be afraid of a moment that requires more attention, that needs a focus in order to achieve what is your objective. It's always, at least for me, I do prefer to be open, frank, transparent, in a way that you are perceived from the other side, independent we are, what they can expect from you. And if you share the problem, you have an opportunity to build an alliance. Instead, if you show up always with achievement, success, you may be, let's say, an object of suspicious. An object that people say, okay, but only good point. So, and it's human that everyone is learning by mistake, not by success. When we win, we don't think about how we win. But when we fail, we think about how we would like not failing again. So this is really a learning process. And in the business, you are aiming, I would say there is a big aim that is learning and money. They have in common both, that you are never exhausted to learn more and never exhausted to have money. But at the end of the day, you should think about that these are just tools for doing what. I particularly like today most of the interviewers, they were asking what is the impact of your action in society coming from your business. So this is the noble goal. What I'm going to change. So for instance, as a NanoRack, we really change it because we make the ISS accessible not only to 6 international players, that are the 6 space agents involved in running the ISS, but we unlock the ISS to customers from 34 nations, to the driver of the market. So this is an unlocking, rendering something accessible to everyone. So country that they didn't think they could send something up to space because they said our country is not participating in the station, so we will never do. No, you can. So I would say this is the goal, that when you have in mind that your business is going to solve a big terrestrial challenge, a big problem common to many people, or maybe to few people with a high willingness to pay, then you can aiming for sustainability of the business. That's it.
Thank you.
From my side, I mean, getting to personal challenges, I think there are two main things that come to my mind. The first one is actually the language. So, I mean, when you imagine a space entrepreneur, you imagine an engineer, probably, that evolved this thinking and also has managing skills and then evolved into a business leader. Myself, I've studied business all my life. I know nothing about engineering. I'm not a technical guy. And I just jumped into this out of interest and passion at the beginning, and it was very hard. I wanted to understand, I wanted to research, I wanted to find a way to study. All my life I've been studying to catch up with things. And I really realized that probably that was not enough. Because this is a very, very tough industry in which people study a lot in order to excel and to fully understand how this works. And there I think I found myself at a cross path, like how am I gonna do it? I either abandon the way, the dream of actually becoming an entrepreneur in the space industry, or I use my team. I don't need to be the most skilled technical guy to be the leader of this company. I have amazing people around me. If I don't have them, I can actually hire them, and I can find the know-how and the support to complete what our company has in order to reach that goal. It takes a lot, I think, because when you feel you're in control and you run the show, at the same time you want to be the one that is in charge and has the full knowledge or the main knowledge of the whole company. But I think as the transition between being the guy that pushes the company to being the guy that manages the whole company, it requires handing over the critical competences and know-how of the company to the different stakeholders and to your team, and rely on them to actually deliver that. I think it's a process, but that was very, very difficult for me, and it got me to a very hard interior discussion with myself. And the second is probably related to the fact that, of course, I'm quite young, so I'm not gonna hide that being a CEO of a company that is growing very fast and that needs to double the team in the next 12 months from 4 people that were around the table 2 or 3 years ago to 50, 60 people company. I feel the pressure. It's of course part of the job, and I think on that as well, feeling that you're not alone and being able to hand over some of the responsibilities to other people helps also on this aspect. So I think these are the main two.
This is probably a problem that is shared between these companies and many more, is the fact that we are deep tech companies, as Raffaele was saying. Deep tech means we are trying to solve a problem whose solution might come really far into the future. So we're talking about solving the problem into 5 to 10 years, even more for specific companies. Maybe medical also shares similar problems here. And how do we get from an idea to delivering a solution so far in the future? Now, this to me is the biggest challenge, and probably the solution comes by educating in a certain way the people you're interacting with, because many times they don't even know about the problem. Then this brings that they're not even thinking about solving the problem if they don't know about the problem. And also trying to demonstrate things. You cannot really go 10 years without demonstrating at least a proof of concept or a small portion of the solution, because otherwise you will not change anything really. So you need to interact with people, interact with companies, and that is quite challenging because again, I mean, it's difficult problems, so you need to invest a lot of resources into this to me.
Okay, thank you, Lorenzo. And before going on with other questions, I would like to ask to the audience if there are any questions from you, and I think this is a great occasion to learn more from the panelists and exchange ideas. I don't know. Please.
Yeah, I have a strange question actually. But there is now a movement against space space rubbish. I mean, there are satellites everywhere. And I'm kind of wondering, you might know, how many do we have up there that are useless right now? And what are we doing to face this problem?
Veronica.
Can I take the floor? So I have my personal view on this, you know. If you are in a square, you know, space can be dark and can be super sunny, okay? So imagine that you are in a square, at night, it's super dark, and you are alone. Are you scared? If you are in a crowded square when it's dark, you feel comfort. So I would say many objects in space a sign of participation. And if I'm sending to space something that I really care, I can tell you that every time we bring a CubeSat up to space to be deployed into orbit, people look every single step. They would like to receive every single information where the CubeSat is going, like a baby, okay? So it's something that I really care. So if I have something that I really care, I will do everything for preventing any damage on my CubeSat colliding with another object, okay? So if participation is a responsibility of your open asset, it's increased the attention that we would like to have a safer space environment. So more objects are there, and more it's higher the participation to avoid collision, actually. Now, we have to be really conscious that we came from an era where space was strategic to have an advantage at a national for security point of view to another one. You would like to avoid the other to participate for not competing with the same asset advantage, okay? So fewer objects in space belong to some key actor was enough, and they wouldn't prevent the other to access. So if this is still the paradigm, we should be away. So we should welcome that space is crowded, in my opinion.
If you want to do something? No,
I can add a couple of things.
I just to build on that, that's very true, and I think it's a very nice take. Anyways, the number of launches is increasing. A lot of stuff is going up there, and no one before thought this was possible at these rates of speed. That's why a lot of those startups that we were mentioning are actually finding solutions to do in-orbited garbage collection. So there are, I think, recently a company that is called The Orbit was awarded a contract by the European Space Agency to actually develop in-orbit servicing solutions and as well as waste management sort of solutions that allow us to clean space from those satellites that are actually out of date and they're not useful anymore. It's a challenge because it's the first time we realize it's so crowded, and before no one actually thought about the problem, but I think there are many takes and many things that are going on in order to mitigate this risk and to actually clean space as well.
Yeah, and there are maybe a couple of interesting facts around the idea of avoiding debris, avoiding waste in orbit. There are, starting now, among the big companies that have thousands of satellites in orbit at the moment, now it's about time where they start to worry about how can they coordinate with each other to make sure that each other's satellites does not collide with the other one, no? And we understand that there is not a practical solution here. So teams have to get on the phone, write emails. We don't have an automatic response to this use case. And this is one of the topics we're investigating in ICO, for example. How can we automate the process of not really maybe avoiding completely the problem, but really making sure we can coordinate different companies and institutions in performing the correct maneuver or in performing the correct action to avoid a collision that would cause a massive problem in space. Recent collisions generated thousands, if not tens of thousands of debris. You cannot afford to have this problem escalating, because otherwise we will have a huge problem launching, huge problem using any assets in space. So there are a couple of things going on, from the startups in orbit to solutions on the ground, many active domains.
Space traffic lights.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And glad to hear the name of The Orbit, which is, in my opinion, one of the best European startups, space startups now. Are there other questions, please?
Yeah, sure. I find it super exciting, and I think of it as an entrepreneur, and I wonder, I've got tons of ideas, like, so I can launch satellite, I can put software there, you guys can help with that. Now my question is, I have no idea how it works in terms of regulations. It is like some kind of space law?
Yes.
Or should I better launch it in Europe because the law is more cool, I can do more things? Should I go somewhere else? Like, how does that work? Is regulation a pain in the ass for you guys, or is it the same work?
So, when the space, if I can take.
That's very important.
So when space came in the global scene, so during the Cold War, there was immediately reaction of the international community with the proposal to the nation of the first Outer Space Treaty, International Outer Space Treaty. On top of this, the International Space Law Corpus is constituted of 5 international treaties. Then there is a number of, let's say, customary law. In space, they are considered like fast customary law. Instead to have the diurnitas, so longer, you have usually a short period of time where the community accepts as a valid source of law. And then you have, the soft law, that is a number of resolution of the United Nations, where at the United Nations we have an entity that is the United Nations Office of Outer Space Affairs. So let's say this is the frame. Now everything has been conceived during that time. Technology drastically evolved. At that time there was no artificial intelligence, but there was intelligence, I would say. So in a certain way, the beauty of the law is the fact that it's mostly at this level working by general principle and then became applicable according to the evolve of the times. Okay, so there are people that they do believe this type of international law, they are still good to be applicable, to be considered applicable, they are good enough. On the other side, it's true that there is an emerging community proposing to introduce amendment to this existing law or maybe new treaties. Now, if you would like to launch a satellite, you need to have a launch base. And the launch base, it is a portion of a nation on Earth that is subject to, first of all, air laws, because you are going to be up. First you impact the air law, and then you go to the outer space. The customary law decide that outer space coming up after 100 kilometers is a fixed barrier, is not a fixed barrier, we can debate. The difference between air law and space law is that in the space domain, you cannot implement the national sovereignty principle. So you cannot say,
international water.
Yeah, more or less, okay. And instead, in the air law, if you don't have the authorization, for instance, for a craft to go over a nation, then this nation has the duty to shoot you immediately, okay? Because you are invading that nation. Instead, that's why spy aircraft is illegal, spy satellite is legitimate. Okay, so you can send up a satellite and look to your neighbor. The first needs for someone to send a satellite up to space. They want to see the neighbors, that's it. And they want the biggest and most powerful camera on board, so not cheapest there.
Okay, we have just 1 minute, so please a very quick question.
Actually, that's perfect. I have a very quick one. So I just joined the ISI half a year ago, and I was wondering, Lorenzo, could you say a few words about your solution? How do you tackle the cloud problem?
Yeah, you joined ISI.
Yes.
Okay.
So we're actually on the other side, except our images already see through clouds.
Exactly.
What is it that your company does to actually clean up and remove the clouds, or what's the solution?
So just to clarify, they're dealing with a technology that sees through clouds, so they are not affected by the cloud problem. And in fact, the cloud solution goes in Earth observation for solutions that are looking in what is called the optical domain, so you actually cannot see through clouds most of the times. Our solution just is a deep learning algorithm that you fly on the satellite and lets you activate your own payloads, which is the camera that takes the picture, depending on the content that you're seeing at the moment, or do more complex things like activate different payloads thinking about the potential probability that you will see clouds in 5 seconds, 10 seconds, depending on your requirements. This is to stay really high level. We can discuss later, of course.
So I would like to thank you for all your questions and the panelists for their ideas and sharing their experience. Thank you all, and may the force be with you.